Tim Robards, how are you, mate?
Mate, I'm very good. Very good. Welcome to my humble abode.
Mate, your humble abode is bloody
Do you
beautiful.
like this artwork? I made it myself.
I thought you'd be an art guy.
Yeah. No, I didn't.
You
I
look
didn't
like
make that. I bought it myself.
Well, mate, it's a pleasure to be here.
Jeez.
I have to ask, like, if you look back 10, 11 years ago, if I was a prophet sent from the future, I walk onto the set of The Bachelor as you're about to start filming, and I presented you with almost a script, play by play, of how the next decade of your life would play out. That you'd meet the woman, you'd fall in love, you'd have the kids, you'd build a life in media and business and entertainment off the back of that camera rolling for the first time. Would you have believed me, or would you have been in denial?
At that point, my one focus was to meet a girl, and I did believe that it could happen. I wasn't like, this is going to happen, because could be 25 crazy girls in there. Luckily, there was only 24. Sorry, no, we're still friends with some of the others. But definitely, I thought, you know what, I wouldn't have done it if I didn't believe that. And I was banking on the thing that I hopefully will find the girl that I'm going to marry, which I did, have kids with her, all that. The kind of, I guess, the career and the working in the media after that wasn't real. It was kind of like, that could be a thing, you know, but back then I was a chiropractor. I had visions to open up multiple clinics, and I always wanted to have a massage clinic, like, you know, like not just like your Thai massage, but like a place you go that you feel like you've just stepped into Bali. And I was like, maybe then I can incorporate more like a big wellness center. And now they're popping up more, you know, with your ice bars and your saunas and all that. I wanted to have that. Anyway, that was my career path back then. But then the biggest thing I took out of Batchy days back then was every single day I was pushing myself out of my comfort zone, doing something. I was shit scared, nervous of being judged, doing things in front of people. I was, you know, everything you're doing is being put up and scrutinized on TV. You're being constantly judged because people have put you on a pedestal calling you the Bachelor. So especially in Australia, there's that tall poppy syndrome. People just want to pull you down. Some people go, oh, you know, keep them up there for a bit. But it's like I learned to back myself through those days that I'd get through where I was shitting myself every day. You'd get to the end of that day and go, I survived and I gained something. So that reinforced, that was a big growth period in my life where it reinforced, if you go expand your comfort zone, good things come from it, as nerve-wracking as it can be. So that's the biggest thing I've taken from that. And I think it wasn't like all the, you know, the media stuff and all that fell into my pocket then, into my hands. It was more that I think I grew and became more confident to chase those things and more grew bigger balls, you know, you know, just to have, like, to constantly keep putting myself out into that nerve-wracking, you know, those nerve-wracking situations where you grow. It's an addictive kind of thing.
It is. It's interesting you say that about, I guess, stepping into that space and having to overcome the fear of judgment. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the show is filmed, and then once filming is wrapped, the show then airs.
Yep.
Right. There's probably a lot of benefit to that as the Bachelor, or in Enna's case, as one of the people who are coming on looking for the guy. Because if the show was even 2 weeks delayed and you start to then immerse yourself in that tall poppy culture of people are criticising you naturally because you're in that position.
Watching it as you're going.
For sure. Could you imagine how nerve-wracking it would be to step in that space of self-critical thinking every day? Because tell me if you think I'm wrong or if you disagree, but love tends to happen when you're in a place of truth, authenticity, and you're showing up with the fear of being judged, but finding a way to overcome it when you can be there and present.
Yeah, I think they tried to block us out from the real world while we're in there. You're in this real bubble, but you'd see little things, or some of the girls got hold of a newspaper article and, you know, or a magazine, and they saw someone wrote like a negative thing in a magazine, and that actually got the girls talking. They're like, hey, we just read this about you. Is this real? I forget what it was, but it was like, you know, so that sort of stuff, yeah, can affect things. If that was the whole way through, they'd be reading these, over the top dramatized bullshit that, the magazines put out back then. So that could have ruined my relationship with Anna if she read it. But yeah, back to like in there, the thing is, one of the good things about, because you're in there and you're questioning it and you're like, am I in, Stockholm syndrome, where you're just, I'm attracted to this person because they're the only person there, or especially the girls, I'm their captor. But with Anna and myself, the one thing that stood out with her was we blocked out all the other people when we were together, and it was just you and I. How are you and I? There's no competition. It's just, do me and you have a connection? Good thing about Bachelor is you kind of fast track you get into some nitty gritty stuff early. They don't want you just talking about what's your favorite color, where do you go on Sunday night? Yes, they want to like get into nitty gritty stuff. So you get into that pretty early, pretty deep, and you get a real sense of the person. And then in some ways, the challenges you have in there mimic the challenges you have in everyday life in a way. There'll be some of the big ones that people face is, insecurities. There's shitloads of that in there for her. There's pressure, there's competition, there's how's that person act in conflict when one of the other girls has a go at her? All these little things that mimic things. So you get a good sense of the type of person, how they treat people, how they act when the pressure's on, how they act when, back then insecurities were a big thing. I think when I was dating different girls, the big thing that would keep coming up were insecurities. We all have them, but I kept like picking these girls with all these insecurities, and it'd end up, you'd block and go, it's not such a big thing, not such a big thing. But then it'd come up and it'd always be the thing that ruins the relationship. And I think the thing with Anna was not that she was super misconfident, but there wasn't the insecurities that a lot of people build up over time that they don't deal with, that can rip apart a relationship. So
did you recognize any insecurity in yourself that you had to work on pre-show or during the show?
Yeah, I came out of a pretty at the time tumultuous relationship. They got me really down. It was one of those ones we broke up 3 or 4 times over a year, and really wanted it to work, but it was just not going anywhere. And I was like, my mates kind of described me as like, they said, you're a shell of your former self. Like I was like a bit of a quivering mess. I lost my mojo, I lost that confidence, lost all that. And so when this thing came around, I'm like, shit, I don't think I'm ready for this. So I went and worked with a coach and did some stuff with DeMartini. I don't know if you know DeMartini, John DeMartini. He's like a talker that goes around, does kind of these big group talking, coaching things, and bit like a Tony Robbins in a way, less like pump up, go, go, go. He's more like very, here's the guide, follow this, and like gives you actual tools to work on. So I did a lot of work on myself. I did a lot of work on what I wanted in the ideal person, and a little bit of like, when you put it out to the universe in a way, but in some ways it's getting clarity in your own mind. People say that that's, like that, putting it out to the universe and, if it comes back, but at the same time, it's getting so clear on what you want, you're more likely to see it. So that for me was something that gave me a bit of confidence. Like I know going in there, I'd also got to a point where I knew what I had to offer and got confident in that, because the last relationship, you go around in circles and you're like, what's wrong with me? But did a lot of work, and I think I went in there in a good space. If I didn't do that work, I don't think Anna probably would have just been like, you're an idiot, get out of here, I'm leaving.
Do you think there's a science to love?
I was gonna make a joke there. I used to have an equation to a date.
Talk me through that.
Yeah, my mates. This is pre Anna days. There used to be an equation. If you wanted the date to go really well, it would involve me cooking dinner at home. Then something come up about me being a massage therapist, being chiropractor, so there'd end up being some sort of massage involved, and then they'd see the piano and they'd be like, they'd ask me to play the piano, and my mates used to laugh. It's pretty cheesy now, but there'd be like dinner, massage, piano, and then the date was sealed. It was a good date.
That's so
that
funny.
was E equals MC squared. It worked every time. That was my very younger days. But for true love, not lust, I think that relies on, they say when you start dating someone, usually you might blindside yourself to the differences, but you'll exaggerate the similarities. And then when you've been together for a while, you start getting on each other's nerves. You then can start doing the opposite, where you exaggerate the differences and you blindside yourself to the actual positives that they bring. And sometimes we do this because we're either infatuated. So infatuation is the exaggeration of similarities, and resentment is the exaggeration of differences. True love is equally embracing both.
I like that.
When you can find that, it's like two sides of an equation. If they're out of balance, you got to settle in the middle. And we can interpret, only we in our minds can interpret whether or not we're exaggerating or we're actually living in the real world. People exaggerate all the time. We live in this anxious world of worst case scenario is going to happen. Worst case scenario is going to happen. It's just around the corner. How am I going to deal with it? We're just living in, anxiety. And then after that follows depression. This thing's so bad. It's so bad, in a way. So whereas when you can actually look at something for what it really is and really be in tune with what it really is, and that's with that infatuation versus resentment. And if you can live in the middle and you're happy, then it doesn't mean just because you can, live in the middle, they're the right person for you. But if you can make sure that you're not exaggerating either side and you're actually taking it for what it is, and if it sits somewhere like this, then you're probably in a good space.
Mate, it's such a hot topic because I think, how old were you when you went on The Bachelor?
30.
There's a lot of guys. I'm 28. I'm lucky that, I'm getting married next year and I found the one. I think that there's a lot of guys, though, at this age who particularly, and the same for women, feel a social expectation to have found that person, to be moving in a direction that represents the timeline that society has set for us in find the person, create the relationship, get married, have children. There is that societal timeline and pressure that's put on us. And that's reinforced every day because people look on their phones and they see the timelines playing out on social media. Yep. And a lot of the time, the timeline that you see play out, sometimes it's real, sometimes it's an exaggeration of the similarities, and sometimes those similarities are an effort to fit into society for a lot of people. So you can't take it as gospel, you have to take it with a grain of salt. But there's a lot of guys, I feel, who would be listening to this show who are plagued with that challenge of, why can't I find her yet? And I think it's really interesting that you made the point, there was a lot of work you did on yourself before you went into the show. I heard you on another interview where you said that you really worked on understanding and figuring out your own values so that you could see those similarities and those shared values in someone else.
Yep. And
I think it's such an important point that to experience true love, you almost have to be in a place where you don't need it, but you can show up wanting it because you've got enough of it in yourself.
Yep, 100%. If you've got gaps in your, if love was like this, I don't know, a full cup or whatever, or something, think of something more linear, and there's little gaps in there. A lot of people look for someone else to fill those gaps. It's like, you complete me. I think that's wrong. Like, two people don't make one whole. Two people make two whole people. And that's a good thing. That's a relationship. Two people come together and make two full people. Then you got 1 + 1 is 2. There's a few people that'll argue that, but if you have disowned parts, or you have empty parts in you and you're looking for someone else to fill those parts, it's a dangerous place to be in. So I think when two people come together, they can double up and have twice as much fun, but don't look for someone to fill in your bits where you're lacking, and vice versa, because that's just, yeah, I've done that before, and it's not a good place. So you want to work on yourself, fill your own little cup, your own linear thing there, and fill it up. And I think then you're also more attractive to someone else, and you're going to more likely attract someone else in who's not looking for someone to fill them up. You know, it's almost like, I don't know, if you think of a key, right? And you got this zigzag of a key, you got someone else with a zigzag of a key. It's really nice if the two keys come together and all the little bits fit.
Yeah.
But, you know, the height of it is less than when two full keys come there flat. Bang, you've got, you know, there's more, there's just, I think it's, you just don't want to be filling each other's gaps.
Well, I think it's a very fair point you make, because I've noticed in the last decade how much I've changed as a person. I think it's just natural that as a person you evolve, you experience new things, you have new challenges in your life, and that requires you to grow and develop yourself, and your interests change, maybe your career path changes. And it seems, as someone who can't speak from experience, because I've not been in a marriage for a decade, that you hear a lot of people in marriage talk about that their lives are changing, and sometimes they feel as though they're growing apart. And that's probably because at some point they came together to fill each other's gaps, as opposed to coming together as two people who are content in themselves and could grow together.
Yeah.
And so you'd be able to speak to that. Like, you've been married for a few years now, you've got the family. Is that a true representation of how it works?
I think there's a few things in that. I think so, like with that other podcast I was talking about, where if your top 5 values are aligned, you know, I think then you're going to have more, you want to complement each other with the ones below that, where, you know, you don't want to be exactly like your partner. You want to challenge each other sometimes. But if you're challenging each other on your top values and you're not aligned on your top values, your relationship isn't going to last too long, or you're going to start resenting them, because they're just, you know, you'll live your life aligned to your top values. And if that person, if they don't align, being in close proximity to that person is just not gonna work. So that one's really important. But then the other thing is, you know, like we've been lucky for over 10 years now, but something you work on each day, you respect each other's goals, but sometimes, you know, they say a lot of our values can change over time. Like maybe every 5 years, some people throw out these numbers, like every 5 years, some of your top values change. As priorities change, kids come along, like all these things can change. And that's an interesting one, you know. I think it comes back to my dad always said, like initially when I was talking about Anna and other relationships, sometimes really simple one, when you kind of like, you know, should I be with this person? Should I still be? He goes, right, it's really simple. Do they bring you up or do they bring you down? In general, right? They bring you up or they bring you down. And if you get into this point, like there might be one day here and there where your partner might be down, they bring you down. But in general, do they bring you up or they bring you down? It's really simple. And to be with someone for a long time, and for them to generally always, you know, generally most of the time be bringing you up, it's a pretty good thing. It's never going to be 100% 7 days a week. You bring each other up. You piss each other off sometimes. You get on each other's nerves. But if you can look at it and go, for the majority of the time, do we bring each other up? That's a pretty good thing.
I think that's the same goes for not just love, but anyone in your life, right?
Exactly,
your closest friends, your people.
Yeah.
Sometimes we feel as though there is an expectation of us to stay, or be there and remain for people who have changed in negative ways in our life. And I'm such a people pleaser, right? So it's a real challenge for me to take my time back and to be a little bit more honest with people when I think that maybe I need a little bit more space or a little bit more solitude. And I'm so blessed that in my relationship that feels very natural.
Yeah.
But as a social guy, You know, when you're in your early 20s, mid 20s, you're running around and you've got 20 mates, and you eventually get busier and life gets a little bit more demanding of you, and you have to be a little bit more, not cutthroat, but you have to be a little stricter with the way that you give your time out to those people who bring you up and make you feel like you're leaving the conversation. There's a great analogy I heard on Chris Williamson's podcast, this idea of either treadmill friends or sofa friends. The treadmill friends are the friends you leave the conversation or those connections, and you've got the energy to go and run on a treadmill. Like they've really brought you up.
Yeah.
And those sofa friends are the ones that you leave and you go, fuck man, I just need to lie down for
Yeah.
20 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm zapped.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's a great analogy for any relationship.
Yeah. And if you got one, if it's like 1 out of 10 conversations, someone, you know, that your mate's down and you have a couch conversation with him, that happens. But if it's like 6 out of 10, you're like, mate, this is, you got to start reassessing your friends a little bit, you know?
For sure. Well, we're all human, right? So we have bad days and you want to be there for your mates, but it's, you're
There's
right.
a level of like, you're like, man, also like life's short. Who do you want to spend your time with, and what do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? So you got to be a little bit selfish too. You got to give, but you got to be a little bit selfish. So I think that's find that balance.
You just said life's short. I agree. It really is. And the busier you get, and often I think the more that you are appreciative of your time because things are going well, the more it feels like it just slips between your fingers.
Yeah.
And you strike me as a guy who is incredibly ambitious, but you seem to walk the line between ambition and appreciation really well. Sounds like you have a good balance.
Yeah, I try, and one thing I've had to do a bit more, I think I'm very ambitious, and I was doing a bit of, I've had a few like, you know, back issues over chronic back pain, different things, and I've been to everyone just, you know, talk about, I'm a chiropractor myself, got in because I had back pain from a very young age and had some really good results with chiropractors, and then now my back's past that level, and I've even gone to like energetic healers to go, right, is this something up here, is it something energetic? I don't know, I'm open to anything because everything I've tried helps a little bit, you know, but not enough. And one of the things that one of the energetic healers pointed out was, you know, sometimes if you're always trying to get ahead, you're always trying to be better tomorrow, you got to be conscious that you're not saying to your body, where we're at now is not good enough. So that can be like such a negative thing. I'm not good enough. We're not good enough right here. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough until I get there. And that can be a really, I think, a negative thing for your body to kind of hear, you know, subconsciously. So I think it's really important to take the time to go and recognize, one, what you have achieved so far, where you're at, and then take a bit of time there and just enjoy that moment. But also, I think we're built to move forward. Humans, compared to other animals, we are built, might be to our own detriment, but we're built to continually to push forward, bigger, better, greater, you know, but you've got to stop and smell the sunshine and live in the moment at the same time. So I really try and balance that out.
I'm going to read you something that I wrote yesterday because I think that is bang on, just what you just said. But I really struggle with that too because I am, at the core, I'm so ambitious.
Yeah.
Like I'm always, and I found myself falling into this probably more than ever lately, is I'm at a period where I'm trying to break through to do more of what I love for my living.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, there's almost a rush because, you know, we're getting married next year. You've got 2 beautiful little girls and we want to do that for ourselves and have some little kiddies. And as a guy who wants to provide and be able to put food on the table for his family and keep a roof over our head, and my partner works too, but you know, you feel that sense of responsibility, that masculine energy. The ambition almost clocks up another level because you want to be able to do that, but you can then catch yourself in the process of not being present and finding it harder to, well, just in turn, just being more self-critical. And so yesterday I was literally sitting in the car before an appointment and I wrote, the problem with becoming is it acknowledges that you're not who you want to be. Being, on the other hand, is a statement that, like a magnet, pulls all you wish to attract without any reach or chase. What if all you ever wanted was only a state of mind away? Not suggesting that no work is required, but suggesting that the work is just an extension of being who you know you truly are. And I think
deep.
it's deep,
like
man,
it.
because I
It's
think
good.
it's such a challenge in a world where you are consistently comparing yourself. You're consistently comparing your achievements, the things that you want to achieve, and the person you want to be is just a scroll away on Instagram. And we live in this place that unless you fully detach, you're going to see that. And so you either approach it with a little bit of self-love and compassion and say, hey, like, I'm just being, and I'm going to move towards that knowing that I'm already capable of it. Or you say, I'm not there yet, and you're self-critical. And I think for some people that works, but that dirty fuel, like, it doesn't last forever.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's kind of doing things, I guess, from an ego point of view, to a degree, letting your ego get in. And I think it's Chris Williams, and we'll talk about like, a man just wants to feel successful and powerful. And whereas a woman, it's a bit different to a degree, very generalization, right? And that masculine, it's more about the masculine, not necessarily man and woman. It's just more in the masculine sense, success and power and, I don't know if I'd say being revered, but just success and power. And I think success is one. You feel when you're ticking off things they've shown, and so when you're ticking off little just to-do lists, it's good for your mental health. It's like you're achieving. I just think we're driven to achieve, but in the same way, like it's the difference between pleasure and happiness. I was just watching something on this the other day where happiness is more about serotonin, pleasure is more about dopamine, and not to confuse the two. So sometimes, what are you trying to be successful for? Is it to buy the boat and have the hit of dopamine, or is it to have your children on the boat with your wife having a laugh and having the hit of happiness, in a way, the serotonin? And maybe, I don't know if that's the right example, but like the difference between, the pleasure, short-lived, happiness is long and sustained. And again, they're just deciphering what are the dopamine hits versus what are the happiness, the serotonin hits, and like focusing a little bit more around that, which is interesting. So trying to tie that all in with ego versus just like love in a way.
Yeah.
I don't know if ego comes into love. Usually the two go separate. When it's love for yourself and love for other people, and you're doing something for love versus for ego, I think having a bit of both is good. You got to just find that balance, find that little balance, and you got to have some drive, but come back and just check in with yourself and be like, but also where we're at right now is pretty freaking good. Let's stop, enjoy these things. And if you're only ever looking ahead, you need to stop and just, having kids is a great reminder for this. It's really taught me, like, I want to provide for them. I want to be successful in that way. I can provide for them. I can pay for their school and go on little holidays and, buy some fun things she wants to for a birthday and put on a party for it, little things like that. Live in a nice house with a pool in the backyard and have those moments. And, some of the best moments are me throwing my kids up in the pool in the water and having them laughing and seeing her walk out the other day at a Gabby's dollhouse party, and she had Gabby there, and she's just like, Gabby, like those are amazing moments. I don't think there's any ego in that. They're just amazing moments, happiness, serotonin, all that good stuff. But you do need, on the flip side of that, there's times where I've got to grind outside of that to make that happen. But then I also have to, I can find myself sometimes I'm on the computer working or on my phone a lot of the time. So much of my stuff I do on my phone, and my daughter might be there doing stuff and asking me questions, and I'm like, yeah, just wait, and you got to be really conscious that I've got to sometimes pull myself out of this and just go, okay, my daughter's here, wants to have my time. But also then I think it's one thing I've learned is there's times where you don't want to be kind of half-half. You don't want to be sort of on your phone, sort of with your kid, half-half. It's like, right, make it clear to them, this is my work time. If you have to come up and ask a question, you do it, but this is work time, but then have clear play time. I think when you start to blend it and you're trying to be there around and play with your kid, but you're not quite there, you're still on your phone and you're half doing things. I think it's better to be all or nothing, or half an hour just all on your phone, half an hour with your kid, rather than an hour blended where you're half there, half not. It's one thing I've learned. I think that's important, and I try and do better each day.
I think there's a lesson in that for anyone, because that's one of the things I struggle with the most. I find myself, because to balance everything that I'm doing, it's like a 7-day-a-week thing, and I rarely get a full day where I'm present. I found that, especially this week, I've had to pull myself up on it. I'll be sitting in bed and I'm playing around with like split testing thumbnails on the YouTube, or I'm editing up a clip. And Soph is mate, she's so understanding. So I'm so lucky that I have someone who cares about me so much. But I find that I'm never really fully present in my work and never really fully present in my time outside of it. And I think that's a great lesson for anybody, is if you can find a way to focus in on the thing that you want to be present in for that given time, it's such a skill.
And I think the thing you can do, like even around your own home, is pick the points in the home. It may even be one certain couch. That's the work couch, whereas the other couch is the sit with your kids and play. Or one end of the bench is the workbench. Or like if if you can have an office, then you find the office is where you work. But like try and avoid that thing. Say if you go, right, the bed is only for sleeping and making passionate love to your wife compared to work. So there's no work gets done there. So like if you got to do that little thing and check thumbnails, go down and sit on the couch in the work part of the couch, or in the office, or at that part of the desk. But like, so when you can link the work to certain areas of your house and just get diligent with that, then there's less crossover as well.
How have you found this industry that you're in, the entertainment space? You now have a few of your businesses, but I'm interested firstly in the entertainment. It is such a fickle business. I had Pete Murray on the podcast last week, and I spoke to Pete about, if you're going to have a sustained 20-year career in entertainment, for him music, how do you balance the uncertainty of, there's success to be had there, but not for everyone. And there's success periodically, but how do you not get in that space of always chasing and always needing?
For me, the biggest thing like I want to be doing right now is acting. And, I was really lucky early on. I started coaching and doing a heap of coaching, and not long after that got my first audition and ended up on Neighbours, and was on Neighbours for 2 and a bit years, and was 2 years straight. Then I came back, did some other stuff. So it was almost 3 years. And after that, I thought, that'll be a shoe-in. I'd move into other stuff pretty easily. And I was kind of met with still a lot of the casting directors going, oh, hang on, aren't you the Bachelor? Like, you're not a real actor, sort of thing. And oh, you got to prove yourself, whatever. So like just not being, and kind of maybe a little bit of my age where I'm at, because at my age, a lot of people are very established in the acting world. They're not looking for the up and coming new face of the 40-year-old. They're looking for that in the 20-year-old guys, So it's a hard little space to be kind of trying to break in. So it's been a real struggle, and over the last 3-4 years since there, and come really close to a few things, and most of it's been US stuff. Like they're a bit like, they don't care as much. They're like, if you put down a good tape, we'll look at it. And had some really close misses, and actually just finally booked something the other day, which I'm really can't say, but it's a goodie. But it took like 4 years, and you're going, and I'm doing like really putting myself out there more. Some of the most nerve-wracking things I've done are these pretty out there, very vulnerable acting classes where like you're doing crazy shit that, I think because I've got a bit of a profile, and you go in there and people know you in there, and, you sometimes feel judgment and things. It's like, you got to be so vulnerable. You're talking about really in-depth stuff that you're hoping no one goes and says anything to anyone, or will end up in bloody Daily Mail, wherever, So it's a little bit scary sometimes, but along the way, you go around, you're like, should I just pack this in? Like this just feels like every other thing in my life, it's you can kind of you can push ahead like wine. It's about the people I can meet. I can go and go into a restaurant and meet the owner, the som, and sit down, give them a taste, and build a business. With acting, unless you're gonna film your own stuff and go and create your own movie, you're kind of at the mercy of a casting director, whether they'll see you or not. There's a gatekeeper, and I've never felt like there's just this brick wall you can't get past, and if they'll let you audition, and then you got to win the audition, but even just to have the ability to be in the mix, there's this gatekeeper, and there's not many jobs in the world where already you've got a 0.01% chance of getting this thing, but even getting the opportunity to audition for this thing and get past this gatekeeper, it's been a real challenge. So there's so many times where I'm like, I just want to throw in the towel. I'm over it. And you get so close, and then right at the end, you might get down the final two, someone else takes it, and you've put so much time and effort into this stuff. Like an audition, I might spend 5 full days working on an audition. You'll put it down. It's like a piece of art in your head. You've worked so hard on this thing. You've spent 5 days doing it. I don't know how long it takes to do that. Might be 5 days. You spend 5 days doing it. You send it off. You never hear a single thing about it. No feedback, no nothing. Good job, bad job, like this, like that. It's done. You never hear about it. You don't get paid for it. It's just done. And so you put so much time and energy in it, stuff that now you take away from your kids. You've got to get readers to come over, read an American accent and things, like so much energy, and you just get nothing back from it. But it's the chase that when you do nail that one thing, it could change your life. So there's not many jobs at the same time that just one little thing could change your life like that. So it's hard. You can like a lot of things there's like stepping stones. This is kind of like you might sit here and then one day just poof. So
how do you find the balance in maintaining self-confidence through having very little feedback and almost zero clarity around whether you were so close to nailing it or you were so far from?
I think I like to lean into the thing. I think I've done a lot of work, and I think I'm good. I don't think I'm amazing, and I love getting critical feedback. Some people can't take, like I'm like, tear me to shreds. Tell me what you think's good. Tell me everything you think's bad, what I can improve on, because I don't let my ego get in the way of like, oh, you just hurt my ego by saying this. I'm like, I want to be one of the best. The only way to get there is to know where you're mucking up and what your flaws are. And then also you got to judge, is that person a good judge of character? Do they even know what they're talking about? But I think just being open that like the only way to grow is to fail, to fail. And you do it all the time when you're acting. You put down an audition, you'll fail the whole thing, but also just might be line to line. One line might be really good. The next line you failed. This line's really good. The next line you failed. And, to the old saying, to increase your rate of success, you got to double your rate of failure. Unless you're trying and failing, then you never get better. But it's really hard when no one gives you any feedback, because then you got nowhere to grow. So I would rather someone tear me to shreds, so I go, right, okay, now I know where to go. It gives me somewhere to go. I don't want someone just go, oh my God, that's amazing, you're so good. And you go, well, where do I go from here? Why haven't I got the job if I'm so good? Tear me to shreds, and then I can grow and I'll get better.
It sounds like to me there is a part of you that really loves the idea of anything that you can start as a beginner and progress in. Like your physique and your fitness is certainly one area there. Acting, now another. Business, another great example of that. For you personally, like, was that the motivation to get into acting, or was it something else?
I think it's a few things. I love a challenge. I love to grow. I love to move forward. Like with my exercise, the goalposts always change. I might have an injury or something, like I'm getting older now. I can't go to the gym and just go through the motions. I need to be doing something different, not every single time, but I need to be moving forward in some way or another. Otherwise I get bored. I need to be either getting more flexible, more strong, faster. I don't know, or I don't know, just doing something that feels good. I don't know, whatever it is, but it needs to be moving forward. I think that's like in most of the things in my life, moving forward. But again, always come back going, where I am right now is pretty cool, and I enjoyed today, but let's move forward again. And, you know, so I think that's really important. And then where was I going to go with that? What else were you saying then?
Just like, what's the motivation behind acting? Because acting is so
acting
specific, right?
Yeah. So acting specifically, there's a few things. I remember when I was like 8 or 10 or something, my mum put me into, like I did a couple of drama classes. I freaking hated it. I was a quiet, nervous kid in groups. Like I was always, Tim is quiet and conscientious. I was just head down, bum up, do my thing, played handball with the kids. I wasn't did not talk to anyone, but like group situations and being up there and, I was like, that wasn't me. And when I was 20, long story, but I ended up getting the role of Keanu Reeves' stand-in and double for The Matrix 2 and 3. That gave me, I was like second in line. So I only worked probably 5 days on it. When the main guy was out, I'd come in. And that, for me, as a 20-year-old, loved the movies, the first one. This is for Matrix 2 and 3. Like, going onto a set and seeing that all work and having Keanu there and Lawrence Fishburne. And I was like, man, this is the most coolest thing in the world, you know? But at that time, I was already on the path of university, get a degree, become by then didn't know I was going to be a chiropractor, but it was like, do some kind of job like that. And it wasn't until 15 years later, I was like, you know what? That thing's been burning inside me for 15 years to give this a go. But I've, mixture of like, your parents sort of say, oh, go to uni, get a degree, do this thing, be this title. They were never really arty. So acting and all that was never an option really. Apart from my mum did encourage me to go to drama. So maybe she wanted me to back in the day. But that sparked and had this little burning little thing underlying that I think through going through Bachelor, working with a team of people, filming something, like I was like, oh, maybe I could do this. And from there, it just I started doing a few acting lessons more and more and more. And then that kind of fueled the thing to get into acting. And I think it was a mixture then when I started doing acting lessons to help with presenting. And when I leaned into the psychology of acting, and what I was doing as a chiropractor was a lot of it's empathy, it's listening, it's understanding and inspiring your patients, your clients. And with acting, it's listening, understanding, empathizing, and getting into the mindset of people and what it teaches you. Say I'm going to play a character who might be a total prick. You've got to look at life through his eyes. He doesn't think he's a prick. He's just is because of what's happened to him in his life. So what it does and what it's taught me in normal life, my real life, is someone might be pissing me off, or I'm like, what is wrong with you? But, I'll take a step back and I'll go, okay, what has gone on in their life? If I was to play them as a character, what has gone into their life that can justify everything they're doing that they think's all right? How the hell, what has happened, And it gives you a bit of empathy, better understanding. So then also in business, if you want to try and get something out of someone, if you can understand them, see what makes them tick as you do as an actor, you can then hopefully negotiate a better deal or whatever it is, So I think the acting in life, it's helped me not only for the acting bit, but just in life. I find the psychology of it very interesting.
It's certainly an interesting space, and I think the emotional intelligence is probably the thing that we lack outlets to test and experience in life, because usually the consequences are high. Like if you're going to challenge your emotional intelligence, it's hard to do that sometimes in a relationship if you don't have the foundation. It's hard to do that in your job because there's an expectation of you. Acting is almost the perfect outlet for that, right? Mm-hmm. And so it sounds so interesting. I had, years ago, like probably 2.5 years ago on the pod, I had Hugh Sheridan.
Yep.
And we had this really fun interview. It was like an amazing chat, just really honest, really funny. And we'd finished the episode up and he's like, I think I've told this story once on the pod. He said, hey, what are you doing right now? And I was like, oh, mate, I was just going to grab a coffee and some lunch. And he goes, what if I buy you coffee and lunch and you helped me read some scripts, I've just had another actor pull out on me. I was like, mate, I'm in, because I've never thought about doing that in my life. Likely never going to have the opportunity again. Mate, it was so funny. We sat in this packed cafe in the middle of Bondi. I think it was sunny day in autumn, so there's people everywhere. And he gives me 2 scripts. One script was for this Netflix rom-com where guy and girl double book this accommodation, and they just so happen to like have a bit of an argument about it and decide, well, we'll just stay here, and they fall in love. It's kind of one of those Netflix rom-coms. The other was Tiger King had come out, and they were doing like a Tiger King spin-off, season 2, where it was fiction blended in with truth. And he was going for the part of Joe Exotic's ex-husband in these flashback moments. And so I had to play Joe Exotic. Mate, nice. I had the time of my life. I was trying to put on the accent. We were cracking up. We had a blast. And I thought it's really fun and unique that you get to sit in these storylines and these characters, and it's fun to be able to compartmentalize something in your life from who you are every day.
And I think that it's an escape in a way. You don't want to feel like you have to escape from your normal life, but there are, whether it's culture, there's these kind of rules put on us, you know. You can't just go in and say what you think, you know. There's repercussions to doing that in some areas, you know. Someone makes your coffee a little bit too hot, part of you wants to go, fuck, we can't even make, you know, don't you know how to make a fucking coffee? This thing's cold, you know. Like, you want to say it, but you say, excuse me, do you mind heating this up a little bit more? But in a movie, the characters we like to see, they don't say, excuse me, do you mind heating? They say, what the fucking hell's wrong with my coffee? You know. So it's sometimes an escape to play these characters who are generally on the outskirts of our, you know, like as big as characters can get, who don't always, you know, stick to the cultural norms and play in the boundaries. So you get to play outside those boundaries a little bit and have a bit of fun being the kind of, it's probably like a small level of Tourette's where you know, they can't control it. They say, well, you get to like go a little more like, I wouldn't normally say this, but I'm going to say, you know, that's the characters you're normally playing. So, which is kind of fun.
Very explorative.
Leading into that. And then also for me, one of the struggles is like, for me, in my normal life, like I've had girlfriends like this whose emotions are up and down, and I'm like, I can't deal with this. So I kind of sit in here, you know, this for me works. And as the chiropractor, the one that's sometimes the rock to people coming in, they're emotional, I'm in pain, I need you to fix me, I'm sore here, and up here, life's up and down. You got to be the one that's, okay, I've got all the answers, here they are, and you got to like live within this. So that serves me in my normal life, but it's kind of boring because I never let myself go to the real highs and the real lows. Not that wouldn't mind the real highs, but sometimes you go there, you also go here. Whereas I can play a character that does that and do it in make-believe land, but also tapping into that is a challenge because I never go there. It's I've had to work a lot to access those highs and lows, and that because your body just goes, hang on, like this isn't normal. Like you shouldn't go here, and you've got to say it's just acting. So come on, just relax, let it go there. It's just acting. You know, it's make believe, but your body knows. Like it starts going, hang on, is this real?
Well, it's interesting you say about the highs and lows in real life, because I think the highs are accessible when you control the elements that influence that, and the lows are usually the things that are outside of your control. You know, if you're in a healthy emotional state,
or it's more like, I think how low you get, you control how you respond to things.
For sure.
So it's, you know, there can be low shitty things that happen, but how long you stay there and how low you let yourself go, you have control of. And maybe I've got too much control in some ways, you know, which can be your detriment as well, because you're like, fuck, you want to live a bit as well, because it's almost like, you know, when you see someone who's on antidepressants and they're just a bit numb, and life's, you know, they don't drop too low, but they're just numb.
They're just right in the middle.
right in the middle.
Almost just a
And
touch below middle, right?
yeah,
Just
it's like
floating.
not there, they're just there. And not that my life's there, but it's like it's here, but sometimes you're like, oh, mind a bit of that. And sometimes it's like I like shedding a tear. If I'm watching a movie in a safe environment, I'll let myself go, like, oh my God, but it's doing it in real life, in normal life, it depends. I'm trying to let myself go there a little bit more, but not stay there too long. So if I feel like shedding a tear or something, I don't normally tear up from sadness much, but I'll tear up from happiness. Or I see something where a father and son hug and I'm like, which I think is a better thing than tearing up too much from sadness. But still, at the same time, if something really bad, if I lost someone or whatever, and the tears are your body's way to get some of that shit out, that emotion out.
Sure.
So I think it's a healthy thing, but you just don't want to stay there too long.
Talk to me about the business, Elle Wines.
So that started, didn't start as a business. It started as a little passion project, as this thought. So the day my daughter was born, talking about hormones before, like I'm high on oxytocin and serotonin and just that love drug. And I'm like holding her in my arm. I've never fallen in love. It's like I've described it before, like a teenage crush. When you're like 15 and you meet this girl and you're like, oh my God, I've got to have, your whole body's just going, I've got to have this girl. Not in a sexual way, but usually then it's like in this love, you don't even know what sex is, but you're just like, I've just got to have this person, it's in total infatuation. And there's this oxytocin love drug coursing through your veins. And I'm like that with it. I'm like, how do I fall in love with someone so quick? The day she came out, it's like, wow. And I'm like, I want to make something in her name. And I remember I was sitting at the hospital holding her there near the window. And I'm like, rosé. It's very feminine. It's pink. It's girly. Elle Rosé. I'm like, that's got a good ring to it. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make her a rosé in her name. And, I think the good thing about alcohol in moderation is generally it's something that brings people together. You celebrate with it. For me, it's associated with smiles and laughs and bringing people together and my family and Anna's family and all that. So I'm like, I want to make something that brings people together, makes me feel like you feel. And so planted that seed with a mate of mine who was a sommelier. And 3 years later, we found a winery, found the winemaker, and we had an idea. We want to make a rosé that was like a French style rosé. A lot of Australian stuff. I don't have confidence going into a restaurant and buying Australian rosé because a lot of times it's not great. A lot of times it'll be a winery that does red and white, and then they'll use whatever leftover red or the one that didn't work as a red, they just turn into a rosé, and it's a way to make some extra bucks. Not all of them, but some of them a bit like that. So it's hit and miss with Australian rosé, and I'm like, you know what? I love drinking French rosé. Can we make an Australian rosé to be just as good or maybe even better than a French rosé? And that's our goal with Elle Rosé. So it's been a bit of a battle. More so because we had a company with a similar name try and shut us down. Okay. And we won.
People will be able to read through the lines.
An international company that didn't quite want us to have this name. So we went into a bit of a battle and we won. And now we have Elle Rosé.
When you win a battle like that in business, does it almost create an extra level of commitment to now seeing out the project and seeing it be successful?
Yeah, well, year one with Elle was like we just did a small run, and it was really test the market, see how the wine comes out, and see how people respond to it, see what the restaurants think. And our first restaurant we got on board was Icebergs. It's one of the best restaurants in Sydney, Bondi, and they loved it. We then went in some good hatted restaurants that year, and the response from people was great. We sold out in like 2.5 months. And then we kind of pissed the restaurants off because they're like, "Hey, where is it?" We're like, "Okay,
Customers
it's a good problem to have." So this year we're like, "Right, let's 10x the amount and turn it into a business." So it was nice. At first, I loved meeting with the wineries, meeting with the restaurants, meeting with the somms, and showing them. And a lot of them, they might see me coming and going, "Oh, Tim Robards just white labeled something, whacked his name on something. Some winery's already producing." But no, we've made this from scratch to our specifications. And this year we've also done a lot of benchmarking, and I took all our favorite French rosés, and we're like, right, see the bit of the texture that's in this, how do we put that into this, the balance that's in this one, how do we bring that in? So we've done a lot of work this year, and I think it's possibly one of the the best rosés in Australia. It's really good, so I'd let you try it, but I can't let you try it.
Yes, I know. I'm sorry.
So,
I'm sorry.
You can smell it. Just
Yes.
smell it. You can spit it out. Do what the Soms do.
Yeah.
Swirl it around. We'll do it. Spit. I'll get a little spittoon thing, and you can
Nice.
have a swish and spit it out.
Nice, I like it.
So I'm really proud of it now, and it's now a business, but it's still a little passion project, and we don't have distributors yet. We're doing it all ourselves because I love going and meeting with the restaurants. I want to keep it personal and, see what happens with it in the future. But, if I can have a little, if Elle can grow up and have a little winery in her name, we'll see what happens.
Well, hey, maybe you have to get in the jewelry business next. There's little Ruby.
Yeah. Well, it's either jewelry, or I thought about if I do ever produce a red wine, then some sort of Ruby Shiraz or Ruby Red will work well,
Hey, you've mentioned a couple times today this preconceived idea people can have about Tim Robards. The Bachelor was 10, 11 years ago.
Yep.
Right? And it would have been remiss of me not to talk about what it taught you today, because I think it's an important part of your journey, especially because you met the love of your life there.
Yep.
But when people have that preconceived idea, it sounds like for you, whether it be business, acting, or any professional pursuit that you go down, and maybe even in personal connections, new friendships and new relationships, your story and your poise and your character and who you are, it's really important to get that across so that people can see through that preconceived idea they have and actually meet you as a person and see the ideas and the motivation and the inspiration behind everything you do. Is that a fair statement?
Yep. And, it's so many different... I think I acknowledge, from a young age, I was doing a bit of modelling-y stuff, and I've done, I think people have an image of me, depending where they see me, either as the Bachelor, the guy with the suit on, or could be Men's Health cover or something, there's an image to me, and things like The Bachelor were a chance, like not for the first half of it, because the first half you hardly even see me. You just see me go, because it's all about the girls. It's towards the end you get to have a bit of a taste of me, but a lot of people still don't get a real taste of who I am or what I am. There's sort of more of an image that precedes me. And I remember I was sitting on a plane once and I was talking to the lady next to me, and she goes, I've got to say, I just thought you were the dude that like works out down at Bondi and eats brown rice and chicken. But there's a bit more to you than that. And I was like, well, I'd hope so. When I'm a chiropractor, I see 100 patients a week, and
Still?
Not now. No, I do once a month, once a fortnight. But back then, you spend, it's a lot of time. You're talking to people, you're helping people out with their problems. You got to have some depth to you to get 100 people want to come and talk to you a week. So there's times where you kind of almost second guess yourself. You're like, hang on, am I just this shallow guy who's just this dude with a, I don't know, looks all right on the cover of a magazine, or is there a bit more to me than that? One thing that was even up until recently, like I did SAS.
Mate, that was brilliant, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. And for me, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. They really soften the show. What you see on TV, they soften it down a lot. It's brutal and it's real. And when I was watching it back, I think it was and I knew because I did well, made it to the end, that you wouldn't see a lot of me at the start. But I was disappointed for the first 5 or 6 episodes. They hardly showed any of my runs. I want to watch some of my runs back just for me to see and relive the moment. Hardly showed it. The only time they would show me was in the background having a shower with my shirt off. And then like there were times where I was helping out. I was a team player. I was helping people out. I was doing chiropractic work on people, having laughs, jokes. They hardly showed me interacting with the campmates. I looked like this dude who was just a loner in the background, having a shower most of the time. I was like, what's Tim doing? I just have another shower, and then there was other things that happened. And that wasn't until the final episode, you finally get a little taste of who I am. And part of doing that show is the personal challenge, but also you're like, I want putting myself up there. You're putting yourself out there for scrutiny, but I want to show a bit of who I am. I want to inspire. I imagine my 15-year-old self sitting in front of the TV, watching that, and I'm like, I want to inspire that guy. Like men's health, when I was 15, I was inspired by men's health magazines. I'd see the guy on the cover, I'd read the stuff, and how do I get healthy? How do I live that lifestyle? And I was inspired by that. And I'm like, I want to be the guy that, you know, I don't have the crazy background story of, you know, I didn't smuggle cocaine from Colombia. I didn't, you know, I'm not a 3-time world champion boxer, but I'm just a dude having a crack. I feel like I'm a bit of a, you know, I'm surrounded by all these Olympic athletes and professional athletes. I'm the black sheep, or the guy probably in some ways feels like I don't deserve to be there. But in my head, I'm like, I've never really won anything in my life, apart from my wife. But that didn't really win her. But like, I've never really won anything. I've never done anything professional from a sporting thing. But I'm like, do I have the mental capacity and the physical capacity to meet some of these Olympic athletes, guys, where they're at? And for me, that was, and at the same time, like, I know I look fit and I'm sort of gym fit, but I got a lot of things going on under the hood, like chronic issues, falling apart of it, that many surgeries to put stuff back together. I've got a lot of fears, heights, phobias, all this stuff, and it wasn't shown at all. And I feel like, again, when you talk about an image, I was just like the fit guy who went in, kind of just passed things, didn't have a big crazy story like, oh, you know, this happened to me when, you know, didn't have that, but nothing was kind of shown to a degree. And so that was one where I think that image, you know, you kind of want to show more, but they didn't. They had an image of me in their head that they wanted to put up, and went with that. Well, there was someone who used to, they write like a comedic kind of review of each episode, and I think it was one of those
on
episodes.
social media.
Yeah, and one of them they described really well. They said Tim is like the Ken doll whose job is beach. You know, that was me. That was my character on that show.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, yeah, it was.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think there is I can sense a pride in you, and a healthy pride, of the fact that you show up in the world in a certain way that you can look in the mirror and respect yourself for. And I get you completely, because I think that whilst it's not the dramatic story that makes for the arc of a character on TV, it's certainly the more relatable thing for a lot of guys who are sitting at home going, hold on, this guy's been married for a decade, or with his partner for a decade. They're married. They've got 2 beautiful kids. He's found success in his life. He finds a way to wake up with a smile on his face. That's actually really relatable. And that's actually something, if not the thing, to aspire to be.
Yeah, and they could have played into that, and I feel like that can be just those little challenges, and you know, and then they do show people going through that, and I think the show's still very very inspirational in a way. But then this year they lean into a lot of the drama and the, you know, so I think there could have been a bit more inspirational stuff from sometimes just the simple things, you know, but you miss out on some of that. But you know, there's also they got to pay the bills, and they got to get the advertisers on, they got to get the clickbait and the headlines and all that. So, you know, I know that I'm not necessarily giving all that, but there's still that was a good thing about like batch days, bachelor stuff, where, you know, there's a journey that you go on, and people kind of along that journey, they see things in you and in themselves that they gel with, and that inspires them in ways. For a lot of people, it's just for bachelor, it's like a little bit of hope. They're like, oh, I love what you guys have. I saw that journey. I love how you treat each other. I'd love a little bit of that. And so they go on that journey, they get inspired by it, and hopefully some of them, you know, go and listen to some of these podcasts and some of the tips on love and find true love, you know. But yeah, there's that's what I like as a chiropractor, and as someone, I feel like part of me, there's a healer or there's an educator in me in a way, and I like to teach and inspire. Maybe some of that's ego, maybe some of that's I'm just a really nice guy, I like to give, I don't know, a bit of both. But I love to help people. I've done it for a lot of my life, and that's one thing people don't realize when you're 15 years of being a chiropractor. I spend my day helping people, one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. They just see me as, oh, you're the dude who works out on the beach and eats brown rice and chicken.
How do you... if you can indulge me with two more questions before we finish up. The first is, how do you balance showing people that side of you who have that misconception or the preconceived idea, but not giving them access to everything and still protecting a little bit of who you are and a little bit of what your life is?
Yeah, no, I mean, even just listening to you say that, I kind of look and I go, okay, am I trying to justify or prove myself to people? So those who may have a preconceived idea, do I need to take energy and go, actually, look, this is who I really am? Kind of now, maybe like previously, I wanted to do that a bit more. Now I'm just like, I know who I am, take it or leave it. But in saying that, there is like what I do in the media, it does rely on people having a better understanding of me and following along. I do want to inspire people. So I guess if I have to convert people over and then, hopefully inspire people to do things better, that's for me, that gives back to me. As a chiropractor, I would work on people, but most of the work I did was kind of up here with them. I try and practice what I preach. So I try and do everything I'm suggesting for them to do. But I like to inspire, and in a way that makes me feel good. So yeah, if I can do that, that really I think that's how I win from it. It's nice to give. And I think they come back to mental health. Anytime when you get in your own thing, it's all about me, versus when you actually give back, that's so good for your own mental health. I think, it's just, I think the world's all about sharing, giving, taking. But if you get into this thing and just take, it's a good fire way to get down on yourself. Whereas when it's all about sharing, giving, it's a nice little balance. Back to the question. What was the second main part of that question?
How do you just balance not giving everyone too much access?
Too much, yeah. I've been through phases like on social media where I feel like sometimes I'll be like, I want to be really open and just talk about everything and be really open. And I think you want to be real, but at the same time, you got to realize that there's a mix of things. So there's Tim that wants to be the healer, the guy who might inspire people to better health, that side of things. I've grown up with my grandma who was into health, my mum. Then there's Tim who wants to be an actor. And Tim the actor, I shouldn't say who wants to be an actor, Tim who is an actor.
I like it.
Who is going to be doing more acting. There's Tim the actor. And it's in a funny way, if I give too much of myself and people are just like, they know me inside and out as Tim Robards, it's hard for them to see me take on a role and believe I'm someone else, another character. You think about all the top actors in the world that most of them don't give too much of themselves away, their personality. They can morph and be anyone. You might see little glimpses, but they're not on social media necessarily every day, apart from someone like The Rock. But he's not necessarily also known for his amazing acting. But a lot of the top actors, they give little bits, but hold a lot back. So in some ways, from an acting point of view, you kind of want to hold back and not give too much of yourself and be able to still be the chameleon that can be whatever you need to be. Then there's another part of me who wants to be just like the most real out there guy that you can. But I think I've pulled back a bit from that. And, my focus is on acting and being a bit more of a chameleon, but I still want to be real. But yeah, it's stuck somewhere in the middle. So that probably helps not giving too much of myself away.
I love that. The first thing I asked you and the last thing I'll ask you is I gave you the picture, I painted the scene that if I had given you the script for the next decade of your life as you step foot onto The Bachelor, I ask you whether you'd believe it or whether you'd be in denial. It sounds like so much of who you were had great vision and great aspirations for the future, and you've actualized a lot of that, and that's something to be really proud of. You don't need me to tell you that, but I think it's worth making the comment. But I wonder if you could look back, and not that we are afforded this gift of going back and giving us younger self advice, maybe if you could look back to the 30-year-old guy or the large number of 30-year-old guys who are listening to this and tell them the one thing that you wish you had heard at that age, what would it be?
A couple of things I'd say, like take a punt at that age, take some risks, take a punt, back yourself, but do it with integrity and honesty. That's a big one, because if you don't, without trust, and which you get from having integrity and being honest, then doesn't matter what you do, will fall apart. Relationships, business relationships, whatever you're doing. I think really reassessing when you know your values and you know yourself, and that's the work I did back then. Integrity will sort of follow. When you're a bit unsure, you don't know whether you're coming or going, you don't know what you're just so unsure. It doesn't just come. You got to do the work. So you got to sit there and find someone who can coach you through things. But clarity, integrity, live your life with integrity, and have a punt, have a crack, back yourself. It's kind of two things mainly. Like, do that.
Mate, I love it. I love it. I heard something recently from another reality TV star in the UK. I don't know if you know Jamie Lang.
No, I don't know.
I heard him deliver a beautiful message on one of his podcasts to his wife.
Yeah.
And it was about the tale of how they met. And he said something right at the end that I think perfectly encapsulates it. He said that fairy tales do come true. Sometimes you just have to take chances when you're falling in love. And I think sometimes you just have to take chances when you love someone or anything in your life. Like, you have to take chances on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, mate, it's been such a pleasure to sit here. I've really enjoyed getting to know a little bit of you.
Yep.
Hearing your story and riffing on some of these ideas. I think it's going to be really valuable for everyone who's listened.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for listening.
My pleasure. We'll make sure that everyone can get the links to access you online, but also things like the business and where they can go and enjoy a glass of Elle Wines.
Rosé, yeah, beautiful. Thanks.
My pleasure, mate.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.